EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Halfway through the week here as we inch closer to the NFL football season, just 71 days until the banner drop. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
I'm doing well. Hope everybody's staying cool. Flipped on the news, which I rarely do these days, the local news. TV's changed so much, you know.
Yeah.
I'm never even on there. So it's not an insult to the local people. They do a great job. But I just happen to be, I don't know what I was. Oh, I was watching NXT, and then PHL news comes on. And it was the hottest day here locally in 13 years. 13 years. I was like, wow. Wow.
Is that
But
yesterday?
anyway, yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, man. It was a hot day, no doubt about it. It's tough to be outside, but that's pretty crazy. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, we got plenty of stuff to talk about today on the show as it gets hot in the Delaware Valley. All right. I hope everybody's enjoying the heat. We complained about it wasn't hot enough. Now John's like, me and John are talking pre-show. It's like too hot. It's like, give me 90, 97.
Yeah, I can deal with 90. I can't deal with 110 heat index. That's like Phoenix.
You're like your wife today, man. You got to get the air conditioning on and you're going to enjoy it.
Well, no, it's still there's a level. You know, there's some crazy. I've had this discussion with people, and they're like, "Oh, I got to have it on 66 and 68." I'm like, first of all, how you paying that electric bill?
Yeah, right.
Number one, but I'm like, my God, we've become soft as a society. I'm a 74 or 75 guy. But
that's high. Now I'm not an air conditioner. I didn't grow up with really
I'm not an air conditioning guy.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with air. So I, you know, like my girlfriend grew up with air. So if she's out of the air conditioning, it's like,
that's exactly
all hell's breaking loose.
Yeah,
me,
exactly.
I'm fine. I can live.
Now I realize 74, 75 is a little bit high. I have no problem that people keep it around 70, 71. I start looking at you with the side eyes when you go under 70. Then I'm like, come on, what are we doing here? And that's to your point about your girlfriend. That's it. People grow up with it, and they can't survive with, like, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but you know, it's like, come on, what are we doing?
No, that's funny, I grew up in an old stone home, John. It was built in the early 1900s. So it's like when it's cold, that house is freezing. And when it's hot, that house is cooking, man. So
well, I grew up in the times of like window air conditions, not central.
Yeah, no, I still have them in my house. Yeah, that's what we have.
So you know, you go to the one room and it was cool. You go to another room and it's, you know, blazing hot. But yeah, for the most part, I like heat. But yeah, the past couple of days are a little bit too much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, plenty of stuff to talk about here on the show today. A little Wednesday edition of Birds 365. We do have Mike Gill coming up in a little bit. BLG is traveling this week, so he won't be with us today, but we still got plenty to talk about here in hour number 2, and we'll take some super chats there as well. But, John, we've been following along on the top 25 list over on Sports Illustrated, doing a great job. You and Ed Kratz, your co-patriot guy we have here on Birds 365 often. Number 20, John. Number 25 was Jihad Campbell, Drew Makuba. Number 24 was Matt Pryor. Number 23 was Adoree Jackson. Number 22 was Jahan Dotson. And number 21 was Keely Ringo. And that's as far as we've gotten. And number 20 is next on the docket. Johnny Mac, who do you and Ed Kratz have at number 20 on your top 25 Eagles list?
Yeah, it's not going to be a splashy one today. But for whatever reason, people don't respect specialists. And then he's coming off a rare down season. But Jake Elliott is number 20. You know, it's a Pro Bowl kicker in 2023. Obviously had a bit of a scale back. Now, I remember reporting this last year. The Eagles, there were a number of bad snaps last year. Uncharacteristic from Rick Lovato. Weirdly, Rick's a great guy, by the way, but you know, he didn't have his best season. Everybody acknowledged it, and I think it affected Jake Elliott, and that's clearly more than I think. that's clearly what the team thought. And they made a move after a long period of time. I mean, Rick's been here since 2016, Super Bowl long snapper, for every Super Bowl win in franchise history, for 3 Super Bowls, all that stuff. So, good guy, good citizen, that type of thing. Former, go back to 2019, even made the Pro Bowl. So there's a lot of loyalty for a long snapper. And I'm like, well, it's now June 25th and he's still not signed anywhere. He's only 32. Long snappers can go forever, which kind of tells you something. Now, ultimately, I think he'll get a chance because people get into camps and maybe somebody will get hurt. Maybe some of the young guys they project aren't good. And it's a role that, you can always go out on the street and find competency. But to that point, Charlie Hewlett, who the Eagles signed to replace Rick, longtime Cleveland long snapper, very good, almost, part of that community was made up to a similar deal. He's 35. They got older, but they're looking, for that more consistency. And they believe that Jake Elliott will have a bounce back year. If you go from 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, so 3 years, guy was 80 of 88 making field goals. 80 of 88. Missed 8 field goals in 3 years. He missed 8 field goals last season.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you think a lot of that's is on Lovato?
Well, they do. They do. So we'll see. But, that demonstrated performance is enough to get him. He's been one of the best kickers in the NFL, arguably the best, because you started with the Tucker slide, and now he's out of the league for other issues that are untoward, to say the least. But, as I said, 2023, he was an all-pro. So that's how quickly things can turn in the NFL. But even if you go back to the Super Bowl, when you're indoors, he made 4 kicks, he made a 50-yarder, and he made 2 over 40 in pristine conditions. So you can see when things are right, he's going to be fine. And if he's fine, he's one of the best kickers in the NFL. So again, not exciting, but he's been one of the best kickers. I think he'll continue to be one of the better kickers in the NFL. He himself has turned 30, so you got to be a little bit careful and pay attention early, because maybe it is a descent. Maybe, I talk about that 80 of 8. He was like 15 of 18 from 50 plus over that span.
Right.
Unbelievable. Last year is 1 of 7. Made 1 kick over 50 yards.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats right now.
And he did kick a 50-yarder in the Super Bowl. So, maybe the worm has turned back to normal, but it is something to keep an eye on early in the season. But that demonstrated performance, really good player. And I know, a lot of people don't even consider kickers part of the team. It's a big part of the team when you need a big kick. And even last year, generally when they needed a big kick, with all the misses, he came through with the big kick, generally. So, Jake Elliott, not the sexiest one at number 20, but that's where he lands.
I do think there's some important things here, though. I mean, there was moments last year where, Jake was being questioned, and you point out the 8 misses he had last year. 6 of them obviously came on the 50 plus. He was 1 for 7, as you mentioned. From 40 to 50, he was 8 for 9, and from 30 to 40, he was 10 for 11. So there's your 8 misses: 1 between 30 and 40, 1 between 40 and 50, and 6 on 50 plus. He only missed 1 point after, John, 1 extra point.
Well, I think he missed 3 in the playoffs.
And then he missed 3 in the playoffs. That's where I was going next. He was 13 of 16 in the playoffs, and he was 10 of 11 on field goals in the playoffs. So pretty good in the playoffs, but those 3 extra point misses, he was perfect in the Super Bowl, 4 field goals, 4 extra points. So I think that was the most important game, obviously. 7 for 7 in the Washington game, but he did miss a field goal in that game. I don't know, kind of a streaky year, but if you're telling me Lovato had his worst year, which the Eagles clearly think, and he's out right now as a free agent, hopefully Jake gets it back together, because I do think special teams is one of those things where you don't think about it, John, until it bites you in the ass. You know, when you're a great team, man, you don't want it to bite you in the ass.
Well, and even more so, we bring up the long snapper part of it. I mean, nobody cares about the long snapper until he does something bad. Which you want nobody to know who Charlie Hewlett is, and that's the goal. And they're hoping to get back that kind of consistency. And Rick was that way for a very long time. So, big part of this team, as I said, you know, 3 Super Bowls in 8 years. He was a part of all of them.
Yep.
But again, and I talk about the stasis of things, and people assuming, oh, he's good, so he's always going to be good. It doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And it's something to keep an eye on for Jake, because maybe the Eagles are wrong, and maybe it wasn't. You know, they've scapegoated people before, and maybe it wasn't his fault. But you can watch, and there were some uncharacteristic snaps. I'm not talking wild, but you know, Braden Mann did a hell of a job. Look at Braden Mann.
Yeah, in the margin. I mean, those are fine lines, John. Yeah, you got. I mean, that's got to be perfect, or else it's a miss.
Yeah. So Braden got a lot of credit inside the organization for his holding. And
I remember I remember a couple of them. You saw Braden like stick his left hand out and like grab the ball. Yeah, he did a nice job.
Yeah. So he got a lot of plaudits for that part of it. So it's something that, you know, again, never comes up. And bottom line is, you're a field goal kicker. And when you're at the highest level, like Jake was, generally when they would miss that 80 of 88, generally when they would miss, you know, sometimes it's 59, 60, and you don't hit the ball correctly. But generally when you miss from a manageable distance, it's something else. It's either a shaky snap, a shaky hold, normally, not always, but normally, with the high level kickers. But if you miss it, you know, people are like, well, he missed it. They're not looking at the other stuff.
That's true. I mean, you pointed out, John, the percentage on the 50-pluser. His longest kick last year, so the only one he made was exactly 50.
Yeah.
That was the shortest long of his career in terms of longest kick of the season for him. It was 50 yards. That was the shortest one he's had. Remember, the first year he had a 61-yarder. 23, he had a 61-yarder. I think that was the Buffalo game, the 61-yarder last year, and then 50. So it is definitely something to watch. I think Lovato did not have a great year, but I mean, you don't want to be giving up points like that. And I do remember about halfway through the year, at some point in the year last year, fans were ready. Jake the Make was no longer being called Jake the Make, whether it was his fault or not.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of that, you know. Hey, everybody's got that kind of pressure, different types of pressure. But with kickers, yeah, sometimes it's not their fault and nobody cares. And that's but they all know that. That's part of the profession. But you talk about that 61-yard field goal against the Giants, which was a franchise record at the time, that you know, that arguably set the Eagles off to their Super Bowl 52 run.
Yeah, I remember that, man. They lifted Jake Elliott up. You know, it was funny.
Yeah.
And then last year, Dank brings up this super chat. Thank you, Dank. Appreciate you, brother. Jake's kick versus Buffalo was absolutely insane. I think that was the 61-yarder last year, right? Or not 24, but 23.
Yeah. He kicked a 60 or 61. I think he kicked at halftime right before a game against Minnesota here as well. So he's got the franchise record for 60-yarders. Yeah, he's been a great kicker. But you do have to be cautious and see if the descent has begun or if it was just the other stuff. So something to keep an eye on. But the Super Bowl, where and again, pristine conditions, was an indication that he's fine if everything's fine around him.
How old is Jake Elliott now?
He's 30. He just, I think he turned 30 in January. Not sure about the birthday. Got to look at that. But kickers, generally can. Yeah, he turned 30 on January 21st. So kickers can generally go to their mid 30s before there's some drop off. But you'll see some leg strength deficiencies, especially when matched up against younger guys who have the strong legs, but probably lack some of the consistency. But I think it's very, if the Eagles were worried at all, they'd have competition in, and they have not brought competition in. So that tells you a lot. Because it's easy to bring in competition for training camp or the off season. They didn't do it. So that tells you a lot.
Yeah. Dank brings up the Buffalo one was the 59-yarder in the ring. That's right. That wasn't the 61-yarder. That was to tie the game late, I think, to send it to overtime. Dank, is that what that one was? I think so.
Well, he was an all-pro. He was second team all-pro in 2023. I mean, he was just unbelievable, and that's
he was 7 for 8 in 50+ yarders in 23.
Yeah. So, and again, that 3 seat, he had kind of a down year, Doug's last year, like everybody, and bounced right back. So I think that's the hope this time. Now, can you go back to 80 of 88 and 15 of 18 or whatever it was from 50 plus? Maybe those days are gone, but I think you're closer to that than you were closer to than what happened last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jake will be all right this year. We'll see how Charlie Hewlett does. The new long snapper for the Eagles, Rick Lovato, is out. Charlie Hewlett is in. 34 or 35 years old, Charlie Hewlett. So he's been around a long time. Good to have him in Philly. And as John mentioned, hopefully we don't hear his name very much this year, or else that won't be a good thing. John, what do you think overall of the special teams unit and what's happened under Michael Clay as the special teams coordinator?
Well, I mean, a lot of upheaval in the return game, and we have to see how it shakes out. As far as coverage, I don't think they were great last year. A lot of nuances with the new kickoff rule. But overall, I think Michael's done a very good job. But you're kind of at the mercy of the roster. Like, that's one thing, Like, Michael Clay doesn't know what he's working with until they cut down to 53. Right. That's probably the hardest thing for a special teams coach in the NFL. And it's probably a little bit harder now because they don't have the incremental cut downs. They go from 90 to 53. So you're expected to use all these guys you're not going to have because they don't want to risk the guys, who are going to be a key part of it. So it's almost become more difficult for them specifically. Right. And then you got to round into form. So we just talk about, games 1 and 2, a lot of people say is glorified preseason nowadays. Probably even more so from a special teams part of it. But, the kick returns are going to be interesting because Britton's gone. They lost Kenny Gainwell, who's the main kick returner, and Isaiah Rodgers, who sort of supplemented him. They're both gone. Obviously, Cooper's great at punt returns, but they don't want him returning punts. So you do have default settings with Cooper and Will Shipley, but they don't want either of them returning kicks. So if they do, it's because Avery Williams specifically or somebody else, whether it's Anaya Smith, has not, seized the job, which they kind of want to happen. But that'll be told in. And then coverage is a lot of sort of stuff that people don't pay attention to, similar to long snapping until it's an issue. And, right off the bat, if Kaylee Ringo's a full-time corner, he's not going to be one of your gunners.
And he was a good gunner. Yeah,
he was very good. So a lot of moving parts, as there always is on special teams. Always.
Is your gut feeling that Avery Williams will be the returner?
Don't know what's wrong with him. Can't find out what's wrong with him. Didn't do anything in the spring. They signed him to be that. But until you see him on the field practicing,
right.
He tore his ACL a couple of years ago. I can't imagine it's something related to that. He was out working on the side field. There was no obvious braces or even sleeves or anything. So, he's the guy they signed to do it. I brought up Taylor Morin. There's a guy, very Britton Covey-like. Just a great college player, too undersized. Who knows? He shows up and, great punt returner in college, like Britton was. Not quite to the level of Britton. Britton was like the best punt returner in the country, but not quite at that level. But very good. So who knows? But Avery Williams, they signed him to be one of the returners, and hopefully, I think the goal was to have him do both and save a roster spot for somewhere else. But you have to see if he's healthy, number one, and then can he do it?
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. A little special teams talk. Jake Elliott closes in number 20 on the list of top 25 Eagles for Johnny Mac and Ed Kratz over on Sports Illustrated. And there's your first 5 names. Really first 6 names, and it's really 7 because 25, there was the one and only tie on the top 25 list. So good stuff there. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning. Hit that like button for us. All right, we've been doing good on the likes. So I want to thank you all for that. Keep smashing that like. We're trying to get to 150 per show. So please do that for us if you're enjoying the content. Let's go to our main man, Mike Gill, who's set to join us now here on Birds 365. You can follow him at Mike Gill Show. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show. Listen to him on the radio at 97.3 ESPN down the shore and 97.